Welcome to another edition of Crime Time with DutyRon. Guys and girls, I'm a retired New York City police detective. And if you like all things true crime related from the police detective's perspective, consider hitting that subscribe button. Hit that notification bell so you'll get all things DutyRon and Ed Wallace when he's available, when we go live or upload another video. Hey, tonight we're going to talk about what I promised you a few weeks ago. Jared Lysek, the founder of Adventures with Purpose, stands charged. He's alleged, he's innocent until proven guilty. I speak about this all the time. It's very important that we understand that in this country, we are afforded that we are afforded that under our Constitution. So I want you guys to understand he's innocent until proven guilty. What we're going to talk about tonight is some of the possible scenarios, some of the defense, some of the prosecutorial angles that they can go with this case. So before I get into it, I want to say a special thank you to you, the live viewers, the Patreon supporters, the channel members. You guys are what makes this an unbelievably great place to be. You send questions, you question Ed and I when we have very difficult conversations. We cover a lot of cases, and I want to thank you guys for engaging. The engagement is what makes this an unbelievably great place. And we give thanks and praise to you guys. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And the moderators, the mod squad here, you guys are second to none on YouTube. So thank you to the moderators as well. Hey, I wanted to just play a quick piece before we introduce Pete, Peter, the lawyer. He's a great guy. He's waiting in the studio. I'm only going to play 50-something seconds of this little piece. This is for my friends who are outside the country that might not be looking or might not be up to date on this case. So I'm going to play this little piece, and then I'm going to bring Pete in real quick. So let's just take a peek at what they got going on here.
A founding member of a popular search dive team is facing allegations of rape of a child from 3 decades ago. Court documents obtained by 6 News show Jared Lysek of Adventures with Purpose is charged with 2 counts of rape of a child from 1992 in Utah. The documents say the girl was 9 years old and Lysek was 7 years older than her. Utah does not have a statute of limitations for rape, allowing charges to now be brought forward. Adventures with Purpose focuses on underwater search and recovery efforts for missing people, helping solve 26 cases since just 2019 alone. Back in February, the team helped find the body of a Waco mother who seemingly vanished for 4 years. Since the charges, several members of the organization have, 7 of the members have left the organization. 6 News reached out for comment. We'll have more on 6 News, but have not heard back from comment from them as of yet. A founding member of a...
So there you have it, folks. That was just a quick little short piece on this case. This is a 30-year-old case. Listen, I've arrested people over the course of my time. Over 1,000 arrests I effected in my career. And one of the oldest was 25 years. And I thought that was a doozy. But this one takes the cake. So without further ado, I want to introduce my guest. You know him as the lawyer on YouTube, Peter Tragos with, I'm not going to say, I'm going to mess the names up, but there's always in a law firm a couple of different names. So I'm going to let Pete do the fine tuning on that one. Without further ado, there he is, the lawyer. Pete, thank you so much, Peter, for hanging out with us here tonight.
Happy to do it, man. Looking forward to it.
Yeah. So this is a difficult case because, before we get into it, there's been very little news coverage on this thing. It's almost like these guys, Jared, his team, the divers that were going out there, these guys were the heroes. They were getting awards. They were being, accolades all over Law and Crime Network, News Nation. Everybody had them on. And, you can go from a hero to a zero real quick in this business.
Yeah, I didn't know much about him until this stuff started popping up and starting to see it being in the YouTube world. It kind of brings it to your attention when these huge channels with huge followings, when something like this happens, and it's really sad. And you see a lot of people from the channel and a lot of people in the group now kind of backing away and trying to distance themselves from him and from the channel.
Yeah, and that's what makes it really it's hurtful to see this because they were doing such good things for bringing missing people home to their loved ones. Some of these cases were 20 and 25 years plus old, and they were pulling people out of lakes and rivers and different bodies of water and bringing their loved ones home. so they could lay him to rest. And it was unbelievable the work that they were doing. And they had almost 3 million subscribers here on YouTube, but they also had 2 or 3 million on Facebook. So, you know, a lot of people have been following these guys, you know, Doug Bishop, Nick Rinn, Josh Cantu, who was the videographer. They were doing an unbelievable job. And it was kind of odd and off-putting because we were noticing, us, you know, us crime investigators and the web sleuths, they were noticing, hey, I got so many questions on my website. Why is Jared no longer showing his face on Adventures with Purpose? And, you know, we didn't think anything like this could have come to fruition. But here we are, fast forward from 1992 right into 2022. I mean, how difficult is this a case to prove in a court of law? And what are they looking at? Let's just dive right into it.
Sure. I mean, when you talk about a case that's this old, there are difficulties on both sides, right? Because both sides are going to have witnesses that they can't find. Both sides are going to have evidence that they would have had if these accusations came down 25 or 30 years ago. Both of them are missing a lot of things that would have been in a trial if this would have happened in a more timely fashion. But Utah, like Florida, my home state, and a lot of other states, and I know New York has opened it back up as well. I don't know if they've totally banned the statute of limitations on these types of rape charges, but there is no statute of limitations anymore in Utah. There's no statute of limitations anymore in Florida. We have a case that's kind of similar to this in our office right now, where these accusations come down, and it is jarring. It is life altering, obviously, for the victim to be bringing this back up again. And it is life altering for the accused and the defendant in these cases, especially ones that maintain their innocence. So I think we have to remember that on both sides. This is very difficult. It's very difficult to go through. And it's a very difficult case for law enforcement, such as yourself, or prosecutors to prove. So I would think if they're going to bring charges that are this old, that they must have more than just the victim's word. And I say just the victim's word. That is enough evidence to prove a crime. If a jury believes her beyond a reasonable doubt, then they can convict for this crime. But usually for something this old, they would probably need more than that. And it seems like there may be some emails and some other things that corroborate her story.
Yeah, I'm going to get into that with you here. But I want to just put up in the 6th Judicial District, the charging documents and so forth. I want to just put it up on the screen, if you don't mind, Peter, because a lot of people aren't really well versed in this. So I'm going to just add this onto the screen. I'm going to take us off so it's full screen so everybody could see it. They're going to all, you know, as you know, they're going to be able to still hear us. So this just goes over, you know, the state of Utah versus Jared. This is a standard criminal indictment number and so forth, judge's name. But here's where the meat and potatoes of this is. This document is, and they talk about 2 counts. 1 count of rape, first degree felony of a child, which I looked up in the state of Utah. It has, if convicted, it looked like to me life in prison. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong.
Yes, up to life in prison.
Yeah. So, and there's 2 counts of this. And what I found is some of my folks who were sending in emails to me, they were saying, well, how come charge 1 is from October 1st and charge 2 is from January 1st? So here's right away off the bat, people questioning the dates, you know, January 1st of 1992, but it looks like it's a New Year's Eve thing. It says on or before December 31st, 1992, going into January 1st. So that explains that. But some people were just caught up on why weren't the dates reversed? Just a small little technicality, but I don't think it really has too much. But these.
So I think if I could just for 1 second jump in here.
Sure.
I think that second count looks almost like a catch-all. And we've actually had prosecutors change the dates of the offense in the charging document right before trial. Because if you look at that second date, that is the entirety of 1992.
Right.
So if the jury doesn't find that it happened between October and November 1st, which is only 30 days, then they're saying, well, anything that we can prove in 1992, or if her dates potentially change, maybe Utah's different. In Florida, they'd be able to change this date literally after trial starts. Sometimes they've changed the date of a charging document in a criminal defense case, especially one of this level with no statute of limitations. So that can happen. And that might be a reason for that count number 2 could be kind of a catch-all with the entirety of 1992.
See, this is why I have Peter here. I would get all caught up on that, but I didn't really have the exact answer. But that's a very good point you bring up there, because they do include the entire year there. And that could be maybe the complainant witness, the victim here. Maybe she was unsure exactly of the date, and they just did that to umbrella the whole thing. So, you'll see on there was a statement that the detective that took this case, he had the victim, I guess, write out a statement, and then they put it out on paper. And I want to put that up there because this basically tells, under no uncertain terms, exactly what the crime was, and it spells it out. I don't know if you did you have a chance to look at this?
I don't think I saw this.
Okay, so it's a statement of probable cause, and I was trying to look for a date, but I can't see it. So, statement of probable cause. The defendant and the victims are cousins, and in 1992, the victim was between 9 and 10 years old. The defendant is 7 years older than the victim. Just before November 1st, 1992, the victim lived in Ephraim, which is located in St. Pete County, Utah. At about this time, the defendant and the victim were in the victim's bedroom when the defendant pinned the victim down to the ground, pulled her underwear down, and put his penis in her vagina. During another incident that same year, and notice there he's saying during another incident in that same year, not saying the exact date, which circles right back to Pete. That's why we got him here. He pays attention. During another incident that same year, the defendant and victim were at grandparents' house in Manatee, which is a completely different location, when the defendant laid on top of the victim and put his penis in her vagina. This information was obtained from the following witness, Detective Corey and on Krebs, Ephraim City incident report. Thoughts on that there, Pete?
It's horrible. I mean, it's really, really horrible to hear that, this is the type of stuff that potentially was going on. And there's a lot of elements to this. And when you start to dig, you start to find out a lot of different things. And I guess if you look into his background a little bit, he made statements before any of this happened about having no skeletons in his closet, and he's an open book. And I guess there was some discussions about how he grew up in foster care and had a really tough upbringing before his grandparents took him in. There's reference to his grandparents' house in that probable cause affidavit. And, I think some of the emails reference as well their difficult childhood, their difficult upbringing, breaking the cycle with their kids of their own. So I think there's a lot to this story, and it's not just a simple perpetrator going in and taking advantage of his victim. And I think there's a lot to unpack here potentially, but it doesn't sound like there's going to be anything less than some grisly details to this story that are going to be tough to hear and tough to go through for everyone involved.
Yeah, and we saw this in a lot of high profile cases, Harvey Weinstein, Jeffrey Epstein, a lot of different high profile cases that were out there in the forefront. And, with the Me Too movement and everybody coming forward, we heard conversations on Facebook. I like to call it fake book, but on Facebook, Jared's sister came out and said that she too was a victim of sexual assault. And here on my channel, I'm not afraid to make these statements like people, I'm not going to talk about rape. Well, listen, this is the conversation that we're having. We're all adults here. And again, it's important that we have this type of conversation, because for everybody to understand the legal process, and a lot of people are not sure about this legal process, because there's the question in the state of Utah is if in fact the defendant is 17 years old. Here in New York, he'd be considered an adult. In Utah, I couldn't find clarity on whether I was able to find clarity about consent, but I was not able to find clarity on the charges. Were you able to look into that, Peter?
So I believe in Utah, 17 can either be a minor or an adult, depending on the activity. And the only way that there's really when you say consent, this may be what you're talking about, but there's a grace period. I don't know if you want to call it that. It sounds kind of gross, but when somebody is underage, is not 18, if they are within, I believe it's 7 years of their consensual partner, then it could potentially not be criminal activity. So if the person is 12 and the other person's 14, potentially not criminal activity. But if they're 10 here and 17, then that's going to be criminal activity. And if they're 16 and 21, not criminal activity, not rape. But again, doesn't seem like this was consensual based on the victim's statements, obviously. And so it doesn't seem like it's going to fit into any of those protections for the defendant. But there are some gray areas when both victim and perpetrator are both minors. But it seems like he is definitely well within the ability for the state to charge him as an adult because he was 17 and she was more than 7 years younger than him, or 7 years younger than him, which is, I think, why they use that term 7 years.
And Peter, again, on these charging documents, if he was going to be charged as a juvenile, I don't think that there would be the strong felony first degree rape of a child here as they listed. I think that it might be worded differently. And correct me if I'm wrong, because this is not my expertise. But I think that if they were going to go at him, now there's always areas of, and we don't even like to talk about plea bargaining and stuff like that, but the state of Utah seems pretty strict when it comes to these, at least prosecuting these sexual assault charges, especially when it involves a child, To
me, it seems like it might even be something that's sealed or we wouldn't see as public record if they were taking this as a juvenile case or considering him a minor. It may even be something like that, but I don't think they're looking at it like that at all. And when we talk plea bargains, both sides have to be willing to compromise. And the position that he's in right now, where everybody's already convicting him in the media and his whole team is backing away from him. And I understand it's difficult. And it's always difficult when I read some of the articles saying what he told to his team. And he said, that's going to be my statement. That's it. It's people that are accused of crimes like this are really in difficult positions. Everything they say is going to be scrutinized and used against them. So I understand why he doesn't want to say much, but in response, I understand why his team is kind of backing away at this point because he's not flat out denying it publicly. Right. But I don't really think he's got a lot of room to compromise here. His life's over if he pleads guilty to anything that sounds anything like child rape.
Yeah, he's gone radio silent. I think there was maybe a statement put out by his attorney. Again, his attorney is going to say, my client is innocent until proven guilty, and we're going to go into this and we're going to prove that he's innocent. I just wanted to let the audience know, and thank you everybody for being here. This is Peter. Am I mauling your last name? Tragos? Is it Tragos?
Tragos. No, Tragos. You got it. Yeah.
Good Greek
you
guy.
Got it.
Tragos.
That's right.
From the YouTube channel, The Lawyer You Know. So if you're not yet subscribed, it is actually already linked in the description here in this video. I have also a link in the description to his law firm. And I have it written down, so I want to try it. It says he's the managing partner of Tragos, Sartes and Tragos.
Sartes.
Yeah,
Sartes.
Shit.
Yeah. Close enough. Close enough.
My friend's gonna say, DutyRon, you didn't get that right. Here she goes.
Oh hell no!
I got it wrong. Damn it! Hold on. Let me call the cops on me. Here they come.
Man.
Yeah,
I got a real show.
I got a little bit of choice here, Pete.
Nice. I like it.
I want to just, because I know I got limited time with you. I'm taking you away from the family. We're both family guys, and I don't like to do that. But so Jared allegedly sent off a bunch of emails back and forth through his Adventures with Purpose support site. Now, this is all alleged, and we don't know if this, in fact, is 100% authentic. But I wanted to put it up here to get your thoughts on it. I'm not going to put all of it. It's like a whole big string. But here he talks about answering her, while there is a lot of shit that happened throughout my life, throughout my own life personally, from molestation, abandonment, growing up in foster care, and any other shit along the way, I would not change a thing, for it has made me who I am today. And the reason I'm highlighting this, ladies and gentlemen, is because if in fact he did type this, he's doubling down on a victim that he had allegedly sex with at 9 years old. And this is what gets me enraged, because when you see stuff like this, of course, you have to, have that presumption of innocence. You don't know if somebody created this, but I'm going to read the rest of it just to further piss everybody off. I cannot apologize for others for anything. I cannot apologize for others for anything that has happened to you in your life, but I have done my best to acknowledge directly with you my own mistakes. I hold no secrets as to this with my own parents, with grandma and grandpa, with your mother, aunt, and then there's retracted people, I guess, that they didn't want to get out there, and my own wife and my children. I have even discussed publicly about my situation and the unfortunate shit that has happened within our families. Do we pinpoint it to the Lysick and, oh, I'm not even going to try that lineage, or do we pinpoint it to Mormonism? I do not have the answer. There's no way for me to understand the hatred and the resentment that you must have for me over these 3 decades later. I heard about your driving into the cemetery a few weeks later. Trust me, had I had known that you had a desire to be there and that I was the only reason keeping you away, I would have 100% given up from my time to do what I could do to avoid the ceremony. He's just going on to talk about family stuff here, but I want to just scroll down here. If it's your decision and your choice, if you ever want to accept my apology, I have made my peace in my life and all things bad, including this situation. If you ever want to discuss, I'm always available to have a conversation with you, either in person or over the phone. And he freaking signs it. Sincerely, Jared. How much does this hurt him, Pete? And that the reason I read that, and I apologize, I didn't read it like perfectly. How damning is that for the defense, and what does the prosecutor do with that?
I think stuff like this can be used both ways, right? By well-trained lawyers. He never admits something specifically like that. He does talk about in other emails that I saw that molestation is a part of their family, meaning he could have been molested as well. And it's kind of, to me, a vague apology, which a good prosecutor will turn into the absolute apology they need for a conviction. And along with the victim's statements, I think this is a pretty big piece of evidence if it is real. It almost reads too good to be true from a prosecutor's point of view. But if you're a defense lawyer looking at it, you'll say, if he actually did do it, why didn't he just apologize for that? Maybe he's going to come up with a story, or maybe it's even the truth that he wishes he could have protected her more from the people that were also abusing him, and he wasn't able to protect her. So, and she looked to him for that protection, and he wasn't able to do that for her, or he left, or whatever he did. And maybe that's what he's apologizing for. So I think there is some things left unanswered there. But his lawyers have also come out publicly and said that he has evidence that is going to exonerate him and that he did not do this. I've seen statements from his lawyers saying that, which is a pretty strong statement in a case like this to make. Right. So it's very interesting. And I think you started off the show by talking about how this being 30 years later affects the case. And another thing we haven't even talked about yet is he rose to fame over the last 30 years, right? And so I think his lawyers are at least going to make the argument that it's no coincidence that when he has fame and money is when she's coming after him. That's something that's common in these types of cases. I don't know if you watched the Ghislaine Maxwell case or I'm sure it's R. Kelly. All those are up in your neck of the woods, right? Those types of cases, that was a very common theme, was it was about the money.
Yeah. I did see that, and I do want to touch on that because that I was definitely going to be getting onto that. You know, it's funny that you see and you hear about this stuff some 30 years later when this guy's at the height of his game. He's at the top of his game, making a lot of these recoveries, making a lot of money on YouTube, doing his thing. But at the same time, you have to be sensitive to the victims. You know, you have to be sensitive to the person who has been allegedly sexually assaulted by him. So I think that, you know, this can be, for me, a situation where, like you said, he's going to have the best attorneys on his end to defend him and say that, you know, this is a false allegation against him. There's no physical evidence, right? Some 30 years later, there's no rape kit done. There's no, you know, anything.
I wouldn't think so.
You know, so in this situation, it's based on what she's saying versus what he's saying and any evidence. And we don't have access to the detective's case file. We don't know what the prosecution is going to put forth, but just like in any case, they're going to have to give over all of their evidence to his defense attorney. And I'm sure, I don't know. Can you talk about this process? 11:30, that's next Wednesday. There is this appearance. What is this appearance? There's a lot of people who are confused about it. Has he been indicted already? You know, here in New York, you get arrested, your grand jury convenes, you get an indictment, and then you go forward with a trial. What's happening with this?
So every jurisdiction is a little bit different, but on your first appearance is where you actually hear the charges that are filed against you. They'll determine whether or not he's going to have a bond. Seems like now he's not in prison, right? I mean, he's out. He lives in a different state. So so it doesn't seem like that. Maybe he is going to be out pending this trial. But this is a really important case. And like you said, they're going to get all the discovery. They're going to be able to do the depositions. They're going to be able to figure out everything that the prosecution knows. There's not going to be any surprises or aha moments in the case, but this is a really important case. Just hearing you discuss it, go back and forth and kind of struggle with what to do, because we want to protect victims. We want to protect victims. I think now more than ever, the way our culture and everybody looks at things, we want to protect victims. But on a case like this, we have to hold the prosecution to their burden. And just because these allegations are so heinous and so horrible, it's hard to even get through as you read them. Just because those are the allegations does not mean he did it.
Right.
So we have to hold the prosecution to that burden. And if they can prove this case beyond and to the exclusion of every reasonable doubt, then he deserves to go to prison for the rest of his life. But if they can't, then we have to be okay with the fact that that's the way our criminal justice system is set up.
Yeah, 100%. You know, Pete, I have friends of his, okay, dive associates, people that he made friends along the way. There's a statement out from his friend Doug, not the diver Doug Bishop, but this guy making a public statement exploring with Nug. I don't know if you saw it. It's just like 2 minutes long. I want to play this because he talks, and I got a feeling this guy's going to get subpoenaed. He's going to get subpoenaed, but it's horrible for me as a cop, you know, as a retired detective. I hate hearing people who are potential witnesses or subjects or, you know, anybody that could be a witness to anything. He makes a statement here saying that he reached out to Jared, and Jared confirmed with him that he did in fact send this email. This is damning. So I'm going to play this because it's out there already. If it wasn't out there, I wouldn't play it. But this is Doug explore. I'm going to read his YouTube channel. I'm going to link it down below. But just take a listen to what he says.
Here's the thing. The proof thing is where I'm like, the emails, that's all the proof I needed to be, you know, convinced that this is not fabricated. And on top of that, somebody also said, well, these emails could be fabricated. You know, somebody could have wrote these. Jared couldn't have, you know, he didn't write these, stuff like that. But Jared has already said that his official statement is the emails back and forth between him and his cousin. I got that text from him because I reached out to him and I was like, hey, I heard about what's going on. You know, I want you to know, because this is before I knew anything and I thought he was my friend. So I told you, I sent him a text. I was like, hey, I heard what's going on, dude. I got your back if you need anything. You know, that was me, my first reaction, because I thought maybe I had a friend getting railroaded. But that's me jumping the gun too fast before I knew what the hell was going on. And that was dumb on my part. But he did write back, very generic message saying, my official statement is what I wrote back and forth to my cousin. That's public on Reddit. So anybody could read these.
Want to know, when was it committed? How old was it?
So there you have it, Pete. And Nug's name is Jeremy. Again, this is my 59-year-old old self. I got the guy's name written down right in front of me, and I call him Doug.
You got other Dougs. I don't know, man. I struggle with stuff like that. I'd like to get him under oath. I'd like to have him testify. I'd like to take his deposition, like you said, because this stuff is all, he could be confused. Like, it's not unusual. People don't do it on purpose often for him to say something like, this is my official statement, and maybe him misunderstand. I don't know anybody that would direct you to a Reddit post that would say, that's my official statement. That just seems strange. It doesn't seem like something anybody would do, but I mean, it's a new day, right? Who the heck knows?
But I just found it amazing that he's got like 500,000 subscribers, Jeremy. Great guy, seems very straightforward, you know, decent dude. But for him to say, you know, me like an idiot, I reached out to him trying to support him, and then he sent me that message back. I just say, you know, the defense attorney wouldn't want to reach out to him, but the freaking prosecution would be like, hey, come on in, you know?
Well, absolutely. But also, if you're Jared and, you know, you're his attorney, this is why you tell him not to speak to this guy or anybody, even though they're his friend. Like, this guy has so much exposure. He has $3 million or 3 million subscribers on YouTube. And this guy, Jeremy, has 500,000. And what does he go do? As soon as he gets a little nugget of evidence, I mean, he goes and blasts it on his YouTube channel. You know, I mean, that's tough. That's exactly why criminal defense attorneys say, don't talk to anybody, whether you think they're your friend, whether you think they're anybody, because all it takes is for them to go on their YouTube channel or say something to somebody else or make it public. And now it's going to come back on you. And it is just by him trying to say, I'm not going to make a statement. I've already written an email or something like that. Now it's coming back. I mean, this just kind of shows this is why it's tough. Today's day and age is going to just get tougher and tougher. Everybody that's got a platform or an opportunity says something and it could potentially become evidence in a case.
Yeah. It's very unfortunate, you know, and I have a good friend who's a retired New York City police officer. He turned into a criminal defense attorney, Joe Murray. He faced his own legal battle while he was on the job. Somebody made a derogatory statement to him while he was a cop in uniform. He went into the detective squad and he punched the guy in the face and broke his nose, and he got locked up. But he fought the case and he won. He fought the case and represented himself, and then he went to law school and he became attorney. He's here in the chat. He's a channel member. I've had him on many a times. And Joe says the same thing. Criminal defense attorney Joe Murray here in New York. He says, shut the F up. Hold on. Shut the F up. So, you know, silence is golden, because if you want to be protected under the Constitution, you know, innocent until proven guilty, the less you say. And I even learned that in trial testimony in the police academy. You answer the questions. You don't expand on the questions. That's how things happen. You know, that's how you get yourself into a bind. I see Pete laughing and smiling right there. Go ahead, Pete.
Ron, how many potential criminal defendants talked their way out of you arresting them?
Well, you know what? Listen, during the day and age that I was a cop in the early 90s, you know, it was a lot of straightforward stuff. And everybody who I arrested tried to talk their way out of getting arrested. I mean, it wasn't not one person when I said, put your hands behind your back, you're under arrest. Most of them turned to me, because I worked in Brownsville and East New York and Brooklyn. Most of them said to me, and I got to go full screen with this, make me. When I'd say, put your hands behind your back, a lot of times they would say, make me. So that's the day and age that I come from. It was do or die in Bed-Stuy. So it wasn't easy. It wasn't easy. But listen, I think we covered this pretty well. I'm not sure if there's anything that we missed here. You know, the age was a big sticking factor. Right now, at this first appearance, they're allowing him to appear, Peter, on WebEx. So he's not even having to go in there. I was thinking if he had to go into that courthouse, into the 6th district, that they were going to lock him up or potentially try to arrest him. But he's in Oregon. The charges are in Utah. That would be you know, they'd have to extradite him, right? So again, I don't see I'm not quite sure 100% what's going to happen at this hearing, because it really wasn't straightforward. Did you see anything in the readings what it's going to be? This is just a preliminary?
Yeah, and that's the interesting thing. You would think if the evidence they had against him was great and the crimes were particularly heinous and he would be considered potentially a danger to the community, that they wouldn't just let him appear by WebEx. They wouldn't just let him be out pending the trial. It's very interesting how they're handling this.
When you look at rape, in first degree rape of a child, and I'm looking right at the charges, it's 76-5 402.1, rape of a child, first degree felony. It's just mind blowing to me.
And he has two daughters.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, if they have, you know, lock and key evidence of this, he should be locked up. If they were very confident with actual hard evidence, he should be locked up.
Yeah. I want to go to the chat, because our good friend, and this is going to confuse people even more, because Peter Crisco, he's a former federal and local prosecutor. He's now criminal defense attorney. He's in the chat. He's in the green room. We're going to bring him in a minute, but let's just go to the chat, because there's a lot of your folks here and there's a lot of my folks here. A couple of super chats came in. I apologize, because Pete, you know how this goes. We get wrapped up in the conversation and these super chats go by. So I want to say thank you to anyone and everyone who's given super chats, and to the community over on The Lawyer. You guys are great. I went in the chat today. You have a great community. They're all engaged. They love they say you are talking in layman's terms and teaching, and I love that. You know, there's nothing better than getting a lawyer, and Pete, when Pete Crisco comes in, he's the same way. It's just he's got a couple of years on you, definitely, and maybe him and I could go toe to toe with age. But when you have experience, like I know you probably sit down and just listen to your dad talk to you, and I want to talk a little bit about how that is for you being a managing partner with your father and his also, it looked like the attorney that I messed his name up. He was there before you. So I wanted to just talk about how that dynamic works. It looks like you guys work smoothly together. I have your channel link down below, and I'll play maybe a video or so of yours if you don't mind. But just talk to the audience about how it is working with Pops.
Yeah, it's awesome. I mean, growing up, I was around it all the time. My dad does mostly criminal defense. He was a state and federal prosecutor. He's actually the chief assistant United States attorney in the Middle District. So he was the head of the entire criminal division in the Middle District of Florida. It was big time drug crimes back then in the 80s. And then he went and is now a criminal defense lawyer. And he is slowing down a little bit, lessening his caseload, handling cases that, that he likes to handle. He does a couple civil cases as well. And it's his prerogative, and he's earned it. And we love having him around. And Pete's been like part of the family. He's been with my dad for 20 plus years, and we all work great together. We have two other lawyers as well, Tyler and Dave. And then we've got a staff of another 10. We do primarily personal injury and criminal defense, or civil and criminal trial lawyers. That's really what we focus on, and we love doing it. The dynamic is really fun. Pete's very Greek, so it's loud all the time. It's fast-paced, fast-moving, a lot of big personalities in the office.
Yeah, and I saw a little blurb, I think, on your website or on the business website. It said Greek law, and I like that.
That's right.
That's awesome.
That's
awesome. Great stuff. So, without further ado, I want to introduce. Don't get confused, folks. We have two Petes here, but the lawyer is I'll refer to him as Pete T, and Pete Crisco. I'll just refer to him as Pete C. So, Pete, thank you so much for joining. And I see you had a little bit of problems with your computer, and I kind of tried to hold the troops off. Welcome into the live stream, Pete. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you. I'm using my phone now. I got my backup phone. My computer wasn't getting online, but it's working.
Hey, so this is my good friend. He's got a great YouTube channel. He's a lawyer down in Clearwater. Did I get that right? Clearwater on the west.
Right.
So
yep,
he's
Tampa Bay area.
How are you?
Good to meet you.
He's in
Good to meet you.
He's in the Tampa Bay area. That means he's got nice warm temperatures. We're the only Pete.
We could use those right now, but on the other hand, my dog loves this weather.
So, Pete, I wanted to go to you. So, for the listening audience, you have, many years in, in prosecution. From the federal level to in Queens County.
Hey, Ron, if you don't want to confuse everybody, you can call me Mr. C. That's what my mother used to call me when she wanted to say something to me that she wasn't happy about what I did. So she would call me Mr. C. Get over here, Mr. C.
All right. You got it. That's just for this live stream. And I won't play Mom after this. I promise. That's
Mom's listening somewhere up above. So she's getting a kick out of it.
Awesome. All right. So I just wanted to just give the audience just a little bit of background on you. You've been on for, we talked about the Delphi murders. You've been on for some of the other cases that we covered and so forth. From a prosecutor standpoint, what is a 30-year case? 9-year-old, 17-year-old perpetrator. How difficult? What are some of the obstacles on a case like this in the state of Utah of proven beyond a reasonable doubt as a prosecutor, Pete?
Well, obviously there's probably going to be little, if any, forensic evidence. So it's going to come down to how much of the victim's testimony, her side of the story, can you corroborate, date, time, place, and the like, and as much as you can corroborate as far as that goes. I don't know whether there were any witnesses. Doesn't sound like there were any witnesses. The next thing is, did she tell anybody? When did she tell anyone? And what was the nature of what she said? And who got the information? And what did they do with the information? It's a long, arduous road. In fact, many states lately are expanding their statute of limitations are in fact taking them down with respect to civil matters. For instance, the Boy Scouts and some of the look back provisions in various states allow people to file civil charges years after the statute of limitations have run. And these are the same issues in those type of cases, but in those type of cases, the burden is only preponderance of the evidence, which is essentially 51%.
Right.
In the criminal cases, it's beyond a reasonable doubt, which is about 99%.
Right. And what we know in Utah is that in 2017, and correct me if I'm wrong, counsels, in 2017, the statutes were lifted. So some people are getting caught up is if the crime was committed in 92 and then the victim comes forward, the complaining witness victim comes forward in 2023, is there any, and I'm just asking this from an audience member, is there any kind of problems with prosecuting this because of crime committed before the statutes were removed, and or is it just okay? They're removed. Everything's game from all the way back.
Well, all I could say is that with respect to New York law, there'd be some issues regarding ex post facto issues that the defense attorney could bring up. Whether it would be successful, would be problematic. Because in the civil arena, the New York State Court of Appeals, the highest court, has said that the statute of limitations is not a constitutional right.
Right.
But I think at least you could, I'm sorry.
No, you're good. You're good. I would think that it would depend on the public policy reasons, usually for when statute of limitations go away or things like this happen, is for them to be retroactive so that these older cases can get prosecuted, so that these civil actions can come forward, and they wouldn't change the legislature unless that's what they wanted, is what I would think. And that's how it is in Florida. A lot of this stuff is being opened up. Florida also got rid of statute of limitations on a number of sex crimes, similar to Utah. So it seems like this is within the purview of the change from 2017 and why they would open up the statute of limitations to be very different than what it was before.
Yeah. And you know something, you make a good point there, because every state is different, right? Every state is different. But we're dealing with the state of Utah, and again, only time will tell what's going to happen here. But as Mr. C said, it's going to depend on a lot of the evidence that the complainant witness, the complainant victim here has, i.e., messages on her phone. If there is text messages that could be verified through subpoenas, through phone records, that in fact from Jared's phone was sent to her phone, and those things are authentic, and those emails are authentic, then that's all going to be submitted as evidence, and it's going to have to be argued on both sides. That's part of this case, and it's not really, and people think, or say that, this is going to be really complicated and really hard. I think this kind of simplifies it a little bit, because there's not really, like you said, there's no crime scene in the home. There's no rape kit done. There's no evidence collection. It is statements and information that the complainant witness has, and the defense. So
nothing will convict him as quickly as his own words in this case. If there are text messages or emails where he makes some kind of admissions or something a prosecutor can really make sound like an admission with context along with the victim's statement, I mean, that's the best thing you can get in a 30-year-old case, because I don't think you're going to have anything that's labeled direct evidence in a case this old in a situation like this. But I do think if he does have text messages or these emails that we're seeing, if they can really be used to show that he is admitting his guilt in this situation and apologizing to her for it, right, that's the most damning evidence you could ask for.
I agree. And Mr. C, most of these comments this one that I just highlighted from DC Primetime, this is what's out there, right? We know how this goes. Pete, the lawyer, I'm like, I want to just make sure that I know this Pete thing is getting confusing, but
we got it.
To the audience, that statement right there, but he admits in the emails, it's okay. Listen, when it comes to court and his life is hanging in the breeze, do you think that he is now going to go to court with his attorney and go, you guys got me, I admit to it? He's going to say, no, I never said that. Prove it.
Yeah, that never happens. And besides that, no matter what so-called evidence is out in the public, it's never everything. And there's always two sides of the story, and probably three sides of the story. And unless you have the text message coming in with the text message going out, you don't have the whole story. And usually there's going to be a series of text messages that you have to determine what the what the meaning of it was. So and you're assuming he's going to take the witness stand. Generally speaking, defense doesn't take a witness stand. The government has to prove the case beyond a reasonable doubt, presumption of innocence. So do these text messages out there by themselves prove the case, or do they just raise an inference? An inference is not sufficient in a criminal court.
Right. You know, I'm going to ask this to both of you, and I'll start with the younger Pete up at the top.
That makes me the older Pete.
Correct. You and I both, we're seniors here. There's no question in my mind. This guy can't be more than 35 years old, you know? But I'll start with the younger Pete. If this was your client, would you have him testify?
I mean, that's tough because I don't know what the other facts are, right? I mean, generally the answer is no in a case like this, because you want the state to have to hold their burden and prove this case without him. It would really depend on these emails that we've seen. Can they be corroborated? Can they be from him? Do they need an explanation? Can he go back and explain what happened on these 2 nights in these 2 locations? How much detail is the victim giving? A lot of that is important when determining whether or not to advise your client to whether or not to take the stand, because obviously it's their decision at the end of the day. But I would think in a case like this, the prosecution is going to have a hard time proving this case beyond a reasonable doubt. So instead of giving them any help and having your defendant go up there and say something that maybe the jury hangs on to as, oh, I think that was an admission, then probably not. But we'll see what the prosecution actually has, because I think that's still to be determined in a case like this, especially if he really wants to prove his innocence and take the stand. Sometimes that happens and the client's adamant about it.
Thank you. How about you, Pete C?
Yeah, I agree with that. I will tell you that from the first minute I meet someone who is the defendant in a criminal case, I am questioning them about the incident, about any corroborating details, in light of the issue about, am I going to put this person on the witness stand? Can this person deal with questions? Do they answer the questions directly, or do they go around, meander around? Do they answer forthrightly? Do they actually look at me when I'm talking to them, or their eyes darting all around the place? So as you know, a defense attorney is talking to his client, he's also studying that client to determine, you know, is this the type of person who can withstand scrutiny on the witness stand? And part of that is testing him during the interview process, or her during the interview process.
And what's your guys' thoughts on whether this would be like a jury trial or a judge, bench trial?
Oh yeah.
What do you think?
It's got to be a jury trial. It's got to be a jury trial, I would think.
Pete?
Yeah, absolutely, jury trial. I mean, just the fact that there's all this publicity about it brings it into the jury.
As you and I would say, as older men, hoopla. This is hoopla.
Yes. Yes. Unfortunately, it does become a circus atmosphere, and you have to protect your client from everything that's attendant to that.
Yeah.
So
I'm going to say this. Listen, as far as I'm concerned, nobody wins here, because we had a very successful dive team that was going out across the country and bringing home people who were unaccounted for some 20 some odd years. Some of the cases were new. We saw Kylie Rodney just this summer pulled out of Prosser Lake by Adventures with Purpose. Not Jared himself, but his dive team, Adventures with Purpose, which now is no longer in existence. They've all resigned. So now families across America, families across potentially, if they had an international reach, I don't know what their plans were, but families across the globe have now one less great team of resources. 26 sets of remains over a period of since 2019 till current day. That's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. And some of these questions that I sent into you guys and that I asked you about the jury trial, about the bench trial, that was coming in from our users. So thank you so much to the users and all of the live chatters. Those emails that were coming into DutyRon.com. Excellent. And guys and girls, if you're not yet subscribed to Crime Time with DutyRon, please consider hitting the red subscribe button. hit that notification bell so you will get all things DutyRon and Ed Wallace when I go live or upload another video. And again, I want to say thank you to the replay viewers, the moderators, and everybody that came from the lawyer that you know. I mean, Peter, it was just an unbelievable hour. I appreciate you spending this time with us. I said you got 30, and here we are for an hour. So, and Mr. C, you had some technical difficulties. What's happening? Do we have to get a GoFundMe and get a new computer for you? What happened?
No, we'll work it out.
Hold on.
Everything gets worked out.
I'm going to get my sign.
Right.
Pull it over, Pete.
All right.
All right.
Hey.
Listen, I again, thank you to my esteemed guests for coming on live with me. I want to just tell everybody, listen, I'm well aware of the arrest that happened today over in Georgia. Listen, little baby Quentin Simon, they've been looking for him in a landfill for over a month. And his mom, Leonie, has been arrested today. Leonie Simon taken into custody, charged with murder of her 20-month-old son. I'm going to be live at 9:30 to cover that press conference that just happened at 6 p.m. So this live stream will end and it's going to redirect. Pete, do you use the redirects on your channel ever? Like, in other words, you do a live stream? Because I notice you do multiples. So if you do multiples, it's always good to set up that redirect. And that's what I have here.
Yeah, I think we have done that before. Honestly, I don't know how a lot of the interworkings work of YouTube. I'm still learning.
You got a guy? You got a guy?
I got a guy. I got a guy. I got a guy, but I'm trying to learn still. I love it. Hey, listen,
again, Senior Pete, you're unbelievable. You know, I text him today and he's like, hey, let's do it. I'll be there. So thank you so much for always being available. And I think we're going to definitely be needing to talk to you because I want to talk about this case with the Quentin Simon case with the murder going forward. So I definitely want to get you guys back in. Pete, the lawyer, will you come back and join us another time?
Absolutely. We'll make it happen.
I think our audience really loved you. I saw a lot of people, a lot of the ladies saying, who's that beauty? Who's that hottie? So I know he's got a ring, so he's married.
That's right.
He's taken.
They're just being friendly. It's all good fun.
Of course.
It's all good fun.
I love it. All right, guys.
All right.
Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
See you guys on
Good
the next
meeting you, Pete.
Yep.
You too, Pete.
Thanks, guys.
Take care, Ron. Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right. So that's the coverage for tonight. Again, at 9, about another 15, 20 minutes, I'm going to be live. We're going to be talking about the press conference today. We're going to cover that. It's going to be quick. I'm going to talk about it real fast. But I want to say thank you to all the new viewers, all the folks who came over from the lawyer, Peter Tragos. Great guy. Now I consider him a friend. Hope that I could come on his channel at sometime in the future and talk about cases with him as well. So as I always like to end these things, let's think about this. There's so many victims out there that suffer in silence of sexual assault and sexual crimes. Let's send strength and prayers and positive vibes to all, not just this case that we're talking about here. Let's send it out to all of the people who are suffering in silence and some of the ones who have been brave enough to come forward. I send strength, prayers, and positive vibes to you all. And if you need to talk to somebody, reach out. Go over to DutyRon.com, send a message. I'll be more than happy to listen and be a very good person. I listen. I'll be a good listener. So again, I'm sending it out, putting that out there. It's not an empty gesture. If anybody needs to talk, just send a message on DutyRon.com. All right, guys, love and respect from my house to yours. God bless the world. God bless the United States of America, and God bless each and every one of us here in the chat, but especially all victims of crime and their families. See you on the next one, and good night from New York.